It's almost that time, Gary. What's up, buddy?
Everything's good. I appreciate you guys letting me hang out.
Awesome. How would you, I think this is always a pretty good jump-off point, and every year it fluctuates a bit, but in your mind, how many teams do you think right now have the depth, have the talent, have the coaching, and have the health where they can win 6 games and actually win a championship this season?
More than usual. And here's why. Because I don't think there's a lot of really good teams and great resumes in college basketball. Gonzaga is worthy of the attention and the ranking it has. Villanova, Kansas, Baylor, so on and so forth. But I don't think any of those teams are special, like so much better than the next 10 or 12 or 14 in the rankings. In other words, when the selection committee did the bracket reveal this past Saturday, you start looking at the 1 versus 4 games. Now, we don't always get those in the Sweet 16, but just theoretically, if the bracket played out the way it's supposed to. Like one of the regions, the East, it was Villanova against UCLA. Now, Villanova's clearly got the better resume. They deserve that 1. UCLA has taken some questionable losses, don't have as many quality wins, probably deserve that 4. But now we're just going to play on a neutral court, 40-minute game. Who are you taking?
Yeah, probably the team with the best player, UCLA.
They got the best player. They might have the 2 most talented players. They might have 3 first-round draft picks. Villanova might have none. And you look around at all of those hypothetical matchups, 1 versus 4, 2 versus 3, they're all coin flip games, and you might take the lower-seeded team. And so what that tells me is that in 2012, there was a special team, that Kentucky team, Anthony Davis, Michael Kidd-Gilchrist. 2009, North Carolina, special team. I don't know that this season has a special team, and that means that really I can rank them by resume.
But is that a good thing?
Well, yeah, I think the bigger question is not as a good thing. Why is it? Right? Why is this parity happening? Is this the effect of the one and done thing finally catching up?
I think some of it is undeniably that, because the truth is, if you build something special in college football, you probably got it for another year. If you build something in college basketball, it almost never comes back to you the next year.
Like Clemson in football.
Right. Clemson was great 2 years ago. Then they bring most of those pieces back, national championship. So you look at college basketball. Villanova last year wins the national championship. They bring back, I think, 3 starters from that team.
Jenkins, Hart, and Brunson. Brunson didn't start last year, did he? At the end, he did.
Right, but they bring back 3 important pieces, and that was like unusual for a national champion. It was the most any team had brought back from a national championship team since all those kids came back for an extra year at Florida. In other words, it'd been a decade. And the reason is because if you're good enough to win a national championship, you've either got seniors who have exhausted their eligibility, or more likely you've got pros, underclassmen who are going to bounce as soon as you do it. And so it's hard to build a dynasty in this sport because your rosters, we have more turnover in the sport than any other, I think, mainstream sport in America.
Oh, I would totally agree with that. Talking to Gary Parrish, CBS Sports College hoops writer. He's with us in studio here, Tiki and Tierney now. But I do want to get back to my part of the question there. Which is better? I mean, I would certainly submit that when you've got 3 or 4 first-rounders trying to win the championship, the name recognition. I'm talking about the average fan. I'm watching no matter what.
You're exactly right.
But Villanova or Gonzaga right now, I mean, a lot of people that just kind of parachuted now, they don't know all these players.
That's the perfect example. Here's the problem, is that, listen, I do this 12 months a year, 365 days. I get excited about all of it. So I can break down Gonzaga's roster for you. I can break down Villanova's roster. But most people can't do that.
Yep.
To have a college basketball story that's going to resonate, say, with you guys during football season, that you might dedicate a segment to it, it needs to be something special. Like multiple lottery picks, undefeated season, that kind of stuff. Otherwise, it's football. Let's talk about football. And so I do think it's fun for people who follow it every day, but I'm smart enough to recognize. I'm not the college basketball writer who tries to tell you it's the best sport in America or the biggest sport in America. It's mostly off the radar until the Super Bowl's over, and now everybody starts to pay attention. Whoa, Gonzaga's undefeated? That's interesting. But if you want a story to resonate in November, December, January, it's got to be one of the stories you're talking about.
Yeah, it's regional, right? Because a lot of it is home fans. Local fans or whatever it is, because it's a school.
It's a lot like Major League Baseball.
I was just going to say that.
In the sense that Major League Baseball is big in every market that it's in, but stuff that happens in any particular market doesn't really resonate around America. In other words, you guys here, you're going to be focused on the Yankees, on the Mets, but in California, they know what's going on day-to-day basis with the Mets and the Yankees? Probably not. And so college basketball is similar. massive in Lexington, massive in Chapel Hill, massive in Lawrence. But does it resonate across the country? I got friends who are sports fans, even host sports radio shows, and I think I could walk into them and pass out pictures of Jonathan Motley and Josh Hart and Nigel Williams-Goss, and they'd say, "Who is that?" Unless they got the uniforms on, you don't recognize that.
That's true.
Let me ask you this.
That's the plight of a football player, Gary. Even superstars in the NFL.
At least you guys got an excuse because you got the helmets on all the time. There's no helmets in college basketball.
Well, he made a few commercials, so people got to see his mug back in the day.
Yeah.
It's Gary Parrish with us here on Tiki and Tierney.
It was Rondé. It was always
the
Rondé.
Cadillac commercial.
It was always Rondé.
Tiki contemplating over the bridge.
The good or the bad, it's always
Cadillac.
Rondé. It's always Rondé.
Let me ask you this. If there's, I have no idea how you're going to answer this question. Let's say, who do you, and we're shooting something for CBS Sports Digital after our show, College Hoops. And, you know, we know about the all-time winningest coach. We know Boeheim wins a ton of games. We know Jim Calhoun did this. We know Pitino's great. We know Calipari's had success myriad places. For your and Izzo, for your money, who is the best strategist, the best head coach in college hoops where even given a relative disparity of talent, that guy is going to put his team in a position to beat a good team?
Tony Bennett at Virginia.
There you go.
Wow.
It almost doesn't matter what it doesn't matter what his pieces are. Like they're top 10 every year. Think about it in these terms. They lose all of that from that Virginia team last year. Lose Austin Nichols after one game, who was projected to be their best player, best scorer, preseason All-American. They're still right there competing for an ACC title, competing for a top 4 seed in America in the NCAA tournament. He's got that program now established where I almost feel about Virginia the way I used to feel about Wisconsin under Bo Ryan.
Yeah.
And maybe the ceiling with Virginia, I think, is a little bit higher, and in the sense that I don't care what the roster looks like. I just trust that that guy's going to figure it out because he has now consistently year after year after year. And NBA people think this way as well. When we at CBSSports.com were asking college basketball coaches, theoretically guys who know the sport better than everybody else, who do you think's the next guy to jump to the NBA or best equipped to succeed in the NBA? The answer we got as often as any other answer was Tony Bennett.
Oh, that's interesting.
Really?
You know, he didn't he grow up in the University of Wisconsin basketball system out there?
Sure, like his father coached there.
Yeah.
And so there was a thought at one point that he was always going to, particularly when Bo walked away last year, that he was going to bounce to Wisconsin. But the truth is, he's established a home with his children and his family. Like, everybody thinks that your hometown, where you grew up, like Matt, and it does, but, like, you know, years pass and you develop, like, a situation there. And he's got that place set up so well at Virginia that Wisconsin didn't make sense for him. I'm not going to pretend that or suggest emphatically that he's going to retire at Virginia. I actually do think he's going to be an NBA coach someday.
You do.
But I don't see him bouncing for another college job. I think he'll do Virginia till he goes to the NBA.
Interesting.
That is very interesting. Obviously, I love that, being a UVA grad. Another team in the ACC, Duke, it felt like they were falling apart. And you go look at their record, they're 20-5. It's not like they were, lost 7 games or something like that. Obviously, Coach K comes back and things have stabilized, but are they vintage in any way? Is this a Duke team that's going to surprise us and go on a run and make this Final Four?
They absolutely could. And not only are they got the record usage, they're like 16, 17-2 with Mike Krzyzewski on the sideline.
Yeah.
So the idea that they are, as we speak right now, and they're at Virginia tonight, so they could take an L there, if only because basically anybody can take an L there. They're only one game back of first place in the ACC standings, despite everything they've been through. And make sure you understand everything they've been through. Top 3 freshmen, all in street clothes when the season starts. Harry Giles still looking like a shell of his former self. Grayson Allen tripping everybody, getting suspended, being distracted emotionally, mentally, and physically, not 100% for most of this season. Mike Krzyzewski misses 7 games because of back surgery, and they're still sitting right here, a legitimate top 15 team with an opportunity, yes, I think, to go to a Final Four, win a national championship. And here's why. No matter what happened November, December, January, February, they were always going to open the NCAA tournament with 9 McDonald's All-Americans and the winningest coach in the history of college basketball. That's a pretty good combination. I'm not saying I predict it. I'm just saying if you're ruling it out, you're insane.
And usually a pretty favorable draw.
Right.
85% Duke fans, not too far away from their campus the first couple of rounds.
But one thing about this
recipe.
particular year, that changes because of the H2.
That's true.
The law in North Carolina.
HB2.
It ripped the games out of Greensboro.
That's
and
true.
So they won't have that so-called home court advantage anymore.
By the way, how much
that.
did Capel, I know it's a small sample, but did he damage his opportunity long-term to become the successor to Coach K?
He certainly didn't enhance
Didn't really
it.
do a good job at all.
Yeah, I mean, he went 4-3.
I mean, come on.
But, like, yeah, the problem for guys who are thrown into that situation, and it happened at Syracuse last year.
Yeah.
You're thrown into that situation, and it's just difficult. It's not your team. They don't listen. Your players don't respond to you the same way, but you're asked to keep it going at a level at which it's supposed to keep going.
Mm-hmm.
And then maybe you do it, maybe you don't. Jeff clearly didn't. But the issue becomes if the team was better before you took over and also is better after you're gone, that becomes a source of a question.
Yeah, it's not going at the top of the resume, put it that way.
And it is true that, Mike has, I think, come back and they're on a 5-game winning streak right now.
Yeah.
They didn't do that under Jeff Capel. So I don't know that it's ruled out because I don't even know when Kay's going to retire.
Mm-hmm.
But I think it's reasonable to assume that he didn't help himself.
Just as a quick aside, you mentioned Syracuse, and obviously Hop is in line there. How many more years for Boeheim?
Well, it's supposed to be, what, 2 more? Like this one and the next.
This is it. It's getting there, right?
Except he was asked last year at the Final Four many times are you definitely walking away after, I think it's the 2017-18 season. He would never go there. Now, the previous AD had suggested that, yes, this is going to be done because it was all in the moment of the NCAA stuff, and they felt like they needed to do some things. But the truth is, and this is the case with basically every NCAA case, seems like the biggest deal in the world in the moment, then you get a few years removed from it, and it's like, oh, Bruce Pearl just had a barbecue. What's the big deal?
Same with Patino.
And now it's the same with Boeheim. Like, who even cares about what happened then? And so if he's still operating at a high level, and there's no reason to suggest that he won't because he consistently does, and the new AD's on board with it, I won't be surprised if he tries to. Whether he succeeds or not, we'll see. But if he tries to take his career longer than what was suggested a couple years back.
Do you think those things really matter to people? That we care about some of the, and I'll put it in quotes, infractions that go on? Fans actually do.
No, that's the right way to phrase it. Media cares about it. We talk about it. We write about it. I sit down at a bar with my buddies. They don't care. They think the Rick Pitino Louisville story is like interesting.
Wait, which one? When he was the woman on the table, the strippers. I mean, which one?
They're all. I mean, they're all interesting for different reasons. But ultimately, does the average casual college basketball fan care about
how did we get this kid?
Inadmissible phone calls or improper benefits?
But you should care about sexual improprieties. I mean, it's one thing if you give the kid $1,000 on the table. It's another thing if there's, there are limits to what should be acceptable or at least accepted on a college campus. They're still kids.
I'm a father of 3 boys.
Okay.
The idea that I would send my son off on an official recruiting trip to a university, an institution of higher learning, and he would be provided with prostitutes is like troubling.
Yeah, no kidding.
Like I'm pretty.
Are your boys ballers?
No, so they got trust me. They ain't getting sent anywhere on a recruiting trip. Don't worry about it. But like,
he'll be the tour guide.
Like, so I can make fun of the story, and I did. Yeah. But the reality is, you put yourself in those shoes as a parent.
Oh yeah.
The idea that you could send your son off to that scene, which is supposed to be the greatest week in his life, and for other reasons it might have turned into the greatest weekend of his life. Yeah. But like as a parent, that's disturbing, undeniably.
Totally agree. Gary Parrish is with us here, of course. Gary, CBS Sports college hoops writer in studio.
You talked about Gonzaga. I don't know anything about Gonzaga. Are they going to stay there?
I dropped Casey Calvary on him the other day, by the way. I did. Little Dan Dickow, 2001.
Dan Dick, absolutely.
I'm like, huh?
Listen,
I was playing football then. What?
They're legit. They're 26-0 now, 23 wins by double digits.
Wow.
And people consistently say, well, they don't play anybody. That's not the right way to phrase it. The truth is they don't play as many people as everybody else does in the ACC, Big 12, so on and so forth. But they've got 6 top 50 wins. They've beaten the Arizona team that might win the Pac-12. They've beaten the Florida team that's in first place in the SEC. They have beaten the Iowa State team that went to Kansas and won. They've beaten the Tennessee team that beat Kentucky. They've got a good resume. These numbers don't mean anything without context, but just trust me, they're important. They're ranked number 1 at KenPom. They have a top 5 offensive efficiency rating, top 5 defensive efficiency rating. And so people are going to be skeptical of them because, A, they play in the West Coast Conference. B, they've never done it. By done it, I mean go to the Final Four. But the truth is they've only been a 1 seed once. That was 2013. So by definition, they've only supposed to have gone to the Final Four once.
Yeah.
And in that tournament, round of 32, they lost to Wichita State. In the moment, looked like a massive upset. How do you be a 1 seed and lose to Wichita State? What do we know now? A, that Wichita State team ended up going to the Final Four. They were really good. B, they hit 12 three-pointers in that game. You do that against almost anybody, you're going to win. C, had 3 future NBA players on its roster: Anthony
Early, Ron
Baker,
Baker,
Fred VanVleet.
VanVleet.
So if that's the item you use to bang over Gonzaga's head, that you lost in the round of 32 as a 1 seed to a Wichita State team that went to the Final Four and had 3 pros that made 12 3-pointers, seems flimsy to me.
And Greg Marshall's a hell of a coach.
And Greg Marshall is terrific.
10 seconds. Biggest sleeper.
Biggest sleeper. You know what? I would still go with probably Duke because they're off everybody's radar. Like, nobody thinks they're a national championship contender.
Yeah, I don't.
Been flawed all season. No point guard. Don't be surprised if they're cutting nets.
Come on, this guy's going Duke is a sleeper. Duke. Come on, Duke is a sleeper.
Gary, don't go out on a limb on it for us.
Gary Parrish. Gary Parrish.
You know what? At CBSSports.com, we did projected brackets recently. Nobody even had Duke in their Final Four.
Wow.
By the way, our buddy Rothstein, who I know you do TV with, John, loves Oregon. Do you like Oregon as much?
I won't be surprised if any of those 3 Pac-12 teams end up in the Final Four: UCLA, Oregon, or Arizona. They're all good enough.
Good hanging with you, man. Nicely done. Thanks for coming into the studio, Gary. We'll get you back in, okay?
Anytime.